Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to the SMMT for allowing me to give you a few words around Honda in the UK. And Honda, as a global mobility company, actually has a very simple goal in that respect: leading the advancement of mobility to enable people everywhere to improve their daily lives, which I think fits very nicely with what's been said previously. So let me start with a few words around Honda itself. Our operations in the UK are based around European headquarters, but they also have a manufacturing operation based down in Swindon. In terms of our global reach, we currently provide mobility to 28 million customers each year, ranging from everything from small 2-horsepower marine engines through a wide range of advanced and sporty cars and motorcycles to the recently released Honda Jet, which is the fastest, most fuel-efficient aircraft in its class. So in line with our philosophy of Gemba, or going to the place, we've developed a global manufacturing footprint enabling us to produce vehicles close to the customer. Our automobile manufacturing network includes production plants, 24 of them, across Japan, Asia, North America, South America, Africa, India, and of course our facility here in Swindon in the UK. Now, we currently employ around about 4,000 people in that facility. This global manufacturing network is becoming increasingly interconnected. And in recent years, Honda's evolved a more flexible global production and supply system where plants also have the capability to produce for other regions. This has led to an evolution in the role of Honda's UK production in the UK, commonly known as HUM. Now, Honda established HUM in 1989 to produce vehicles for the European market. Honda chose to base itself in the UK as we were looking for a business-friendly environment with good access to the European markets. Since 1989, we've invested something close to £2 billion in the facility and have built over 3.5 million cars during that time. In 2015, Honda announced a fresh investment of £200 million and, again, facilitating that evolution of HUM's role in Honda's global manufacturing system. HUM has become the global production hub of the new Civic hatchback, exporting to global markets such as North America, as well as continuing to produce for the European market. Export to the US began in summer 2016, and from 2017, we'll export approximately 50% of HUM's production outside Europe, mainly to North America. We are fully committed to our UK operations, and I can confirm from the summer 2017 that HUM will further expand its export business with production and export of both Civic hatchback and also the performance Civic Type R to Japan. Now, this is a very exciting development for HUM and highlights the opportunities that increasing globalization and interconnectedness can provide to the UK's automotive manufacturing sector. However, a business environment that supports and encourages free and frictionless trade is necessary for us to seize these opportunities, particularly in the light of the UK's departure from the EU. To us, free and frictionless trade implies the elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers, the smooth flow of goods along our supply chains, and simple, painless customs arrangements, all of which the European Customs Union currently provides. The Customs Union allows exporters to trade tariff-free throughout the EU, as well as limiting border checks and other bureaucratic burdens. The more we dig into the detail of what leaving the Customs Union following Brexit would mean, the more complexity we discover, both in terms of imposing additional cost and friction to our business, as well as creating complex technical and regulatory challenges for civil servants and businesses alike. So let me take a few minutes to explain how continued membership of the Customs Union could provide significant benefits to the ongoing success of the UK automotive sector. Firstly, by remaining in the Customs Union, we would avoid costly tariffs that would otherwise erode competitiveness of the OEMs, as well as companies throughout our supply chain, while enabling the UK automotive industry to compete fairly with EU-based car makers. Under WTO rules, which would apply if we left the customs union without an EU-UK free trade agreement, cars would attract a 10% tariff, while auto parts face 4.5% such rates of tariff. High tariffs would also reduce the competitiveness of UK exports to the EU, while the imposition of tariffs on imports of component parts would drive up the costs of all vehicles produced in the UK, no matter where in the world they end up being sold. Another complex but vital issue that remaining in the customs union would help us to avoid are rules of origin. All free trade agreements use these rules to determine which goods can benefit from reduced duties and other preferential treatment. Usually these rules state that a product should contain 50 to 60% of originating content to benefit from reduced tariffs. The reality is that only 40% or so of the components to build a modern car could be sourced in the UK, and not all of that would be classed as originating, as local suppliers often source from abroad. The upshot of this problem is being unable to meet the rules of origin thresholds. The UK automotive sector would not stand to gain from the free trade deals with the EU or the rest of the world without significant divergence from current practice. So staying with the customs union provides three main benefits. Firstly, we would avoid having to manage compliance in the trade of goods to and from the EU. Secondly, by allowing us to pool EU and UK content, we could continue to benefit from preferential treatment in free trade deals with third countries. Simple EEA membership or a free trade deal would not be sufficient. Compliance with rules of origin currently imposes heavy costs on Norway and other EEA members, which are not in the customs union. Finally, the most important benefit of maintaining the customs union membership is that ensuring our integrated pan-European supply chain continues to operate smoothly and efficiently. It is the supply chain I now wish to turn my attention to. In line with most UK manufacturers, we import a large proportion of components used in our production in our Swindon factory from EU suppliers. As I mentioned earlier, only 40% of components to build a modern car can be sourced in the UK. As we operate a highly efficient just-in-time manufacturing process, we rely on these goods being able to move smoothly across EU-UK border and arrive at our Swindon factory at the right time. Allow me to share a few figures with you to illustrate the importance of a smooth flow of components from the EU to the UK. Production at Swindon relies on the timely delivery of 2 million components daily. 350 lorries a day deliver EU-sourced parts. We hold components for 1 hour's worth of production line side, while we hold only half a day's worth of UK and EU-sourced components in local warehouses. Given this very finely balanced system, disruption to the flow of goods to the factory could interrupt our ability to continue to produce cars efficiently at Swindon. By remaining in the customs union, we can avoid 3 important risks after Brexit. A, custom checks would not need to be carried out on EU-UK borders, avoiding the need for governments to invest in infrastructure and additional staffing at key ports of entry. For importers and exporters, this would avoid unpredictable delays as physical checks at the border are carried out and additional congestion at already overloaded transport infrastructure around our ports. B, customs union membership would also avoid the need for government and business to modify IT administrative systems. As the Treasury Select Committee recently highlighted, the new Customs Declaration Service, CDS, currently being implemented to replace the existing chief system, is currently behind schedule. C, we should not underestimate the potential risks and issues associated with implementing system change of the size and complexity this involves. Chief was designed to cope with 60 million transactions. After Brexit, the demand is expected to be 6 times that number. in the region of 360 million transactions. If Chief falls over, we're faced with a manual backup system which consists of 3 separate forms per transaction. Our own experience with the implementation of the Unified Customs Code is that changes to customs systems are extremely complex and take many, many months to complete, even with the sterling work by HMRC and our own in-house customs teams. Given the experience of the difficulty of moving to new customs systems, business needs a phased approach to introducing any new systems or complex changes of rules. Remaining in the customs union would allow time for that transitioning to happen and to allow for the bedding in of the new, more capable CDS and reduce risk. If the challenges of Brexit and leaving customs union pose issues for a business the size of Honda's, the impact on small and medium-sized businesses in our supply chain will be much greater. Let's take the example of a supplier to Honda, perhaps a sheet metal worker in the Midlands, or a supplier of plastic components from the Southwest. These small businesses, thanks to our membership of the Customs Union up to now, have had no need to deal with complex customs clearance procedures, managing rules of origin, documentation, or handling VAT recovery. We need to ask if SMEs such as those will have the administrative capability to handle the increased complexity of trading with Europe without the simplicity provided by the Customs Union. A recent survey of SMEs in the west of England by Business West showed that almost a third of exporting businesses have no experience of using customs documentation to trade with other countries. Leaving the Customs Union will only imply extra costs for SMEs. The Treasury has estimated the cost of dealing with the rules of origin declarations alone could add 4% to the cost of transactions, a significant bite into the margins of an SME component supplier. And what would be the impact if these small suppliers are unable to manage the complexity of moving goods across the EU-UK border, or the administrative costs become prohibitive? Put very simply, the supply chain will start to seize up, with obvious impacts on our ability to manufacture vehicles efficiently. If suppliers cannot manage source inputs from the EU 27, then they will be unable to produce the components we need locally. Given the complexities of retooling, training, procurement, and contract negotiation, we would not be able to establish quickly sources of supply, a situation which is exacerbated by the shallowness of the UK supply chain. Maintaining our membership of the Customs Union would shield SMEs from those difficulties and ensure that the supply chain remains competitive into the future. Looking to the future, and just moving away from Brexit for the moment, there are a number of emerging opportunities presenting themselves to the automotive industry and its supply chain in the UK for the years to come. If we look at the trends in the automotive sector, some of which we've already heard, we see a future in the next 10 to 15 years where autonomous and electrified technologies will come to the fore. Indeed, Honda recently announced an aspiration that 2/3 of its sales in Europe will be electrified by 2025 and globally by 2030. And we would hope our UK operations have a significant role to play in driving these innovations forward. Increasing demand for low-emission vehicles will create an increased demand for high-performance battery technology, along with the other components required by electric drivetrains. As propulsion systems can represent up to 50% of the value of most vehicles, the UK stands to benefit considerably if it is able to position itself at the forefront of low-carbon drivetrain development. These developments will all have a part to play in the future of clean mobility and will potentially enable the UK to take a leading position in terms of technology and manufacturing, whilst also establishing itself as a leader in CO2 reduction and air quality improvement. For UK manufacturers to make the most of these opportunities, they need a strong, innovative, dynamic supply chain. that will be able to supply the advanced batteries, IT components, and lightweight materials that will make up the next generation of low-emission, connected, and autonomous cars. That supply chain of the future will still require access to goods from the EU and to be able to export the products to car makers on the continent to remain cost competitive and nimble. As the Brexit continues, negotiations continue with our EU partners, my request would be to the UK government to bear in mind the exciting future that awaits the automotive sector in this country and to do all it can to seek a deal that will promote free and frictionless trade between the UK and EU, whilst ensuring the continued competitiveness of our small and medium-sized businesses that make up our supply chain. To my mind, maintaining the UK's membership of the Customs Union plays an important role in achieving that goal. Thanks for your time and attention, and I look forward to taking your questions and to a productive debate for the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.